Mrs. Blackwood, you need to see this. The maid's voice trembled as she held up the tiny, flesh-colored object between her fingers. Victoria Blackwood's face went white. "Where did you find that?" she whispered. "In little Emma's ear. It's been there the whole time." The penthouse suite fell silent except for a sound no one in that room had heard in 7 years. Emma's small voice, crystal clear. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Victoria's $30,000 hearing aids lay forgotten on the marble floor, because what Rosa had just discovered would shatter everything this family believed about their daughter, their lives, and the woman they'd treated as invisible for the past decade. Before we reveal the truth that changes everything, subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what this discovery really means. Victoria Blackwood's world was constructed from privilege. A Manhattan penthouse overlooking Central Park, charity galas and designer gowns, and a daughter she'd been told would never hear her voice. Emma, 7 years old with golden curls and her mother's blue eyes, had been diagnosed as profoundly deaf at 6 months. The specialists were unanimous. The diagnosis was absolute. Victoria had spent hundreds of thousands on the finest audiologists, the most advanced hearing technology, speech therapist from Switzerland. Nothing worked. Emma remained locked in silence, communicating only through sign language and the iPad Victoria had purchased for $3,000, loaded with every educational app money could buy. Rosa Martinez had worked for the Blackwood for 11 years, arriving before Emma was born. She cleaned their 6,000-square-foot penthouse 6 days a week, $600 weekly in cash, no benefits. She was 53, with calloused hands and graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. To Victoria, Rosa was part of the furniture, necessary, invisible, rarely addressed directly. "Rosa," Emma spilled juice in her room again, Victoria would say without looking up from her phone. "No, please. No, thank you. Just expectations." Rosa never complained. She needed this job. Her own daughter was in nursing school, and every dollar mattered. But Rosa noticed things others didn't. She watched how Emma would startle when doors slammed, how the little girl's eyes would flick toward sounds, just for a microsecond, before remembering she was supposed to be deaf. Rosa had raised 4 children of her own. She'd been a nurse in the Dominican Republic before immigrating, and something about Emma's deafness had never sat right with her. But who would listen to a maid? 3 weeks ago, during Emma's bath time, Rosa noticed Emma scratching at her right ear. The little girl seemed frustrated, uncomfortable. Victoria was at a gala. Emma's father was traveling, as always. Rosa was alone with the child, as she often was. And that's when Rosa decided to look closer. "Rosa, I've told you not to touch Emma without asking me first." Victoria's voice was ice the next morning when Rosa mentioned Emma's discomfort. "She is a specialist for these things. You're here to clean, not to play doctor." "But Mrs. Blackwood, I just think." "You're not paid to think, Rosa. You're paid to keep my home presentable." Victoria turned back to her laptop, dismissing Rosa with a wave of her hand, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the morning light. Rosa swallowed her words, her dignity folded away like the laundry she carried to Emma's room. The truth was, Victoria Blackwood had built an identity around her daughter's disability. She chaired fundraisers for deaf education. She gave speeches about resilience. Her Instagram, 297,000 followers, chronicled their journey. The beautiful mother and her silent daughter, facing the world with grace. Victoria had become someone important because of Emma's deafness. Rosa saw the magazine covers on the coffee table. Socialite mother champions deaf daughter's education. The interviews. The book deal Victoria was negotiating. Emma's silence had become Victoria's currency. But Rosa also saw what the cameras didn't capture. Emma, alone in her room, tears streaming down her face after another failed speech therapy session. The little girl frantically signing, "Why can't I be normal?" to no one in particular. Victoria too busy with another interview about raising a deaf child to notice her daughter's despair. If you're feeling what I'm feeling right now, smash that subscribe button, because this story is about to take a turn you won't see coming. 2 weeks later, Rosa was cleaning Emma's room when the little girl tugged on her sleeve, scratching desperately at her ear again. This time, tears filled Emma's eyes. She was in pain. Rosa knelt down, gently signing, "Let me see, sweetheart." She tilted Emma's head toward the window light. Her experienced eye caught something, a slight discoloration deep in the ear canal. Not wax, not an infection, something foreign. Rosa retrieved tweezers from the bathroom, sterilizing them carefully with alcohol. Her nursing training kicked in. Emma held very still, trusting Rosa in a way she never quite trusted the parade of expensive specialists who poked and prodded her. Slowly, carefully, Rosa extracted what appeared to be a small, flesh-colored plug, custom-molded, deliberate, designed to look natural. And then, for the first time in 7 years, Emma gasped. "Rosa," the little girl whispered, her own voice startling her. "Rosa, I can't hear you." The door opened. Victoria stood in the doorway, shopping bags from Bergdorf Goodman in her hands. Her face wasn't relieved. It was terrified. The shopping bags hit the floor with a crash. Victoria's perfectly composed mask cracked, revealing something Rosa had never seen before: panic. "What did you do?" Victoria's voice was sharp, accusatory. "Give that to me." She lunged for the flesh-colored plug in Rosa's hand, but Rosa stepped back instinctively, protecting it like evidence at a crime scene. Emma stood between them, her small hand pressed against her, wonder and confusion flickering across her face. "Mommy, I can hear the birds outside. I can hear the traffic. I can't hear." "Emma, go to your room. Now." Victoria's command was steel, but her hands shook. "But Mommy." "Now." The little girl fled, and for the first time in 11 years, Rosa stood her ground. She looked at the object in her hand, perfectly molded, professionally made, designed to block sound completely. This wasn't something that had accidentally gotten lodged in a child's ear. This was deliberate, calculated. Rosa's mind raced through the past 7 years. The diagnosis at 6 months old, right after Victoria's own mother had passed away and left her nothing, claiming Victoria had always been too selfish to appreciate family. The inheritance that had gone to Victoria's brother instead, contingent on him having children. The sudden outpouring of sympathy when Emma was declared deaf. The reconciliation with Victoria's wealthy father, who'd softened toward his daughter when he saw her struggle with a disabled child. The trust fund he'd established for Emma's care, millions of dollars Victoria controlled. The charity foundation Victoria had launched. The speaking fees. The book deal. The brand partnerships with companies selling products for deaf children. All of it built on a lie. "You did this," Rosa said quietly, the words heavy with horror. "You made your own daughter deaf." Victoria's expression hardened. "You don't understand. You couldn't possibly understand." "Then explain it to me." Rosa's voice remained steady, though her heart hammered against her ribs. "Explain to me how a mother does this to her child. I gave her a good life." Victoria's voice rose, defensive. The best schools, the best therapists, everything she could want. Everything except her hearing. Everything except the truth. "You a maid, Rosa. A nobody. Who's going to believe you?" Victoria's eyes glittered dangerously. "I'll say you're lying. Trying to extort me. I'll have you deported." Rosa's phone was already out, recording. She'd hit record the moment she'd seen Victoria's face in the doorway. Her hands might have trembled, but her resolve didn't. "Hit that subscribe button if you believe in karma. You're going to want to see how this ends." "Mrs. Blackwood," Rosa said, her voice carrying the weight of every ignored word, every dismissed concern, every year of invisible labor. "I think it's time we called someone who will believe me." She held up her phone, screen facing Victoria. 911 was already dialing. The next 48 hours unraveled Victoria Blackwood's perfectly curated life thread by thread. The 911 call brought police, who brought Child Protective Services, who brought FBI agents when the scope of the deception became clear. Medical fraud, child abuse, insurance fraud spanning 7 years, and nearly $2 million in fraudulent claims for treatments Emma never needed. Dr. Patricia Chen, the pediatric audiologist who diagnosed Emma at 6 months, was brought in for questioning. Her records were pristine, too pristine. Every test result, every audiogram, every report documented profound hearing loss. But when investigators looked closer, they found something curious. Victoria Blackwood's father had donated $500,000 to Dr. Chen's research foundation the same month Emma was diagnosed. The custom earplugs, there were dozens of them, different sizes to accommodate Emma's growth, found hidden in Victoria's private safe, had been made by a medical device manufacturer in Prague. The paper trail led to Victoria's personal bank account. The purchase orders were dated weeks after Emma's birth, long before any diagnosis. The most damaging evidence came from Victoria's own laptop. Deleted emails, recovered by forensic analysts, painted a devastating picture. Messages to her father. The diagnosis has brought us closer than we've been in years. To her book agent, Emma's story is going to make us all wealthy. To her lawyer, discussing the trust fund, as long as she remains disabled, I control the entire estate. But the moment that made news anchors' voices crack with emotion, the moment that went viral with 40 million views in the first day, was the body camera footage from the officer who'd interviewed Emma. The 7-year-old sat in a child-sized chair at the police station, her voice tentative, unused to hearing herself speak. "I thought everyone's mommy put plugs in their ears," she said, confusion wrinkling her small forehead. "Mommy said it was medicine to help me. She said if I ever took them out, I would get very sick." The officer, a father of 3, had to pause the interview to compose himself. Rosa stood in the precinct, still wearing her cleaning uniform, still clutching her phone, and watched as Victoria was led out in handcuffs. The woman who'd treated her as invisible for 11 years now couldn't look away, couldn't dismiss her, couldn't wave her off with a diamond-laden hand. "You destroyed me," Victoria hissed as she passed. "For what? You're still nobody." Rosa thought of Emma's voice, clear as crystal, saying her name for the first time. She thought of the little girl who could finally hear birds singing and rain falling and her own laughter echoing through rooms that had kept her prisoner. "No, Mrs. Blackwood," Rosa said quietly. "I saved her. That's not nothing. That's everything." The media storm was immediate and merciless. Victoria's charity foundation collapsed within hours, donors demanding refunds. The book deal was cancelled. Her Instagram account, once a shrine to performative motherhood, was flooded with comments calling her a monster. Brand partners deleted every trace of their association with her. Victoria's father issued a statement. "I am devastated beyond words. The trust fund will be restructured to ensure Emma receives every penny directly, and Victoria will receive nothing from our family ever again." The court case was swift. Child abuse, medical fraud, falsifying documents. Victoria Blackwood was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison, with her parole contingent on surrendering all parental rights. Emma would never call her mommy again, but she would call Rosa something else entirely. 14 months after that day, Rosa Martinez officially adopted Emma Blackwood, whose last name became Martinez Blackwood at her own request. "I want to keep part of who I was," the 8-year-old explained to the family court judge, "so I remember how to be grateful for who I am now." The penthouse was sold, the proceeds going into Emma's trust fund. Rosa and Emma moved into a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Queens, bright, warm, filled with windows that let in sound. Music, laughter, traffic, life. Emma attended public school now, thriving among classmates who knew nothing of her story except that she had the coolest mom who packed the best lunches and always knew when someone needed a hug. She was learning piano. Her hearing was perfect, doctors confirmed, never damaged despite 7 years of deprivation. The human brain, they marveled, was remarkably resilient. Rosa's daughter, now a registered nurse, helped raise her new little sister. Emma called her Tia Maria, and the 3 of them created something Victoria's millions never could, a real family. As for Victoria, she sat in her prison cell, her designer clothes replaced with orange scrubs, her perfectly manicured hands now bare and ordinary. Inmates who'd read about her case kept their distance. Even among criminals, there were lines you didn't cross. Hurting your own child was one of them. Rosa sometimes wondered if Victoria felt remorse. She doubted it. People who could do what Victoria did were missing something fundamental, not in their hearing, but in their hearts. On Emma's 9th birthday, Rosa watched her daughter blow out candles, surrounded by real friends who loved her for who she was, not what she represented. Emma's wish, she signed and spoke simultaneously, was that every kid who feels broken gets someone like Rosa. The greatest wealth, Rosa had learned, was never in bank accounts or penthouses or Instagram followers. It was in the courage to do what's right when no one's watching, and the love that grows when you choose truth over comfort. Emma could finally hear everything, but more importantly, she'd finally been heard. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it, because sometimes the quietest voices deserve the loudest amplification. Hit that notification bell, and let's keep sharing stories that matter.